Hello everyone and welcome to Andrews RC. I'm out in the garage, it's freezing cold, so this one won't take long. You'll probably be pleased to know. So here we have my Cross Rc BC8 Mammoth, and she's naked, like the video suggests. I have done a complete strip down and re-greasing, so that's everything, front axle, rear axle and the gearbox as well. I'm just going to take you through a few things that I've learned having owned this rig now for 7 months. So yeah, I built it 7 months ago, just at the start of the lockdown, and it's had a pretty hard life so far. It's been drowned, it's been through deep mud bogs, and I thought it's time to just have a little look at how things are inside. I was dreading taking it apart because it's not an easy thing to dismantle. I've only built it, I've not stripped it before, so I was a bit nervous about that. But it's done pretty much, and it wasn't too bad, but it's not as easy as rigs with easily accessible axles that sling underneath the chassis. Reason being is, for those that don't know, in here, really, see, this thing is just so difficult to film and work on, including a bad camera setup. Everything is enclosed, so you have got holes down the bottom, but the front axle and rear axle are just in this channel. So if I move the rig here, and same with the front, and there was just crusted mud in there. It was disgusting. I will put some pictures up of, you know, what it was like inside and the bearings and condition of things. So there was lots and lots of mud in here. I guess things going over the top, in around the sides. It was disgusting actually. And to get the axles out, you have to take the plates off underneath. So underneath here, you'll see this is the part of where the axle bolts on, and you have to take all these screws off and it then drops out. But the problem with that is that you can't drop the axles out unless you take the drive shafts out. Now these drive shafts go in here and they go into the side of the axle, and you have to pull the whole lot out. So you have to undo the hub screw here. So you take the hub screw off and you can then pull it out. It's not too bad. It was, you know, you have to really have to take the cab off and all these wires feeding through. I was just thinking, oh no, but it's been worth doing it because the inside of the axles was completely dry. There was no grease left in there whatsoever. The same, so the front and rear axle were the same. A little bit of grease off the side of the crown gear. So on the crown gear you have like the shafts where the bearing goes on either side. I'll put some pictures up as we go through, but the cogs were pretty much dry, as was the gearbox. Now, like with all my cross rigs, I grease everything. I took the whole gearbox apart before I'd even built the rig and put lots of grease in there, and it was pretty much dry. And that's quite scary. The MC6 isn't like that at all. So I don't know why. There was no real evidence of water egress in anything at all, really. It was all pretty dry, bit grubby, so water had been in there, I guess. But yeah, a lot of the grease had gone. So after about 7 months of hard use, it was time for re-greasing. Now I feel quite ashamed about that because I should probably do that a lot more often. But yes, so it does need some attention. Now I have taken these rear arms off, like the suspension rocker arm. I've put a new bearing in here. So I've bought a bearing set for it, and I've replaced bearings as and when I needed to. Inside the axles, I haven't had to replace a single bearing, which is probably quite useful for people to know. Axles were fine. I just needed re-greasing and put back together. I have greased all in here, as you can see. Inside these kind of, I don't know what you'd call them, but these are the parts that go onto the A-arms that then allow them to, you know, the flex up and down as per suspension. So it's not conventional suspension like leaf springs or anything like that. It's just this rocker arm. So that's lovely and greased now. It's probably better now, the axles and this and other bits and pieces, than when I built it 7 months ago, really. Because I've copper greased all the bolts and I've gone over and above because, you know, why not? Anyway, the bits that have been the worst by far have been the hubs. So in actual fact, the rear hubs were worse than the fronts. See, the rear hubs are sitting in there at the moment, and the rear hubs and drive shafts with the bearings were worse than the front. But this is probably quite obvious, to be fair. These are lowest down, these, you know, they're really quite low down, and they're going to take all the abuse, and they certainly did take the abuse. Not every single bearing was stuck, to be fair, and the outside bearings in here were better than the inner bearings. So I've got one of the inner bearings, which is the big bearing that sits inside this hub here that you can't see at the moment. It was stuck solid, and I had to hammer it to get it out. And it was rusty, grinding, really, really nasty. Whereas the outer ones here, they were all pretty much like this. A couple of them were a little bit grindy, so I thought, right, I'll replace them. Why not? So that's something to be aware of if you have a Mammoth, is really, and what I should do, I should take my own advice, is after a bad run, or a couple of bad runs at least, just take the hubs off, take the wheels off, take the hubs off, and give them a good clean, the bearings inside. Because obviously stuff gets wedged in here, especially. I suppose on the outside, the wheel is tight up against it, so you don't have, you know, a lot of getting in there maybe. But whereas inside the hub in here, you know, if you're going through some muddy water that comes up, you know, halfway up the wheel line, it can easily go into the hub and get trapped, and you'll have all bits of detritus and nastiness in there. So she is really, really greased up, and sounds really, really smooth. I've just been very, very busy, a little bit lazy, to be honest. I go fits and starts with things like this. I explode in it and get lots done in, you know, 2 days, and then it slows down. So probably over Christmas, I'm going to get her all back together and get her running again. What I need to do is the rear axle is back in. My last job was to grease the suspension arm. I need to put the rear hubs back on and the drive shafts in. When that's back on, I then need to put the cab back on the top, and she's pretty much good to go. So yeah, it's the first strip down, and I will make an attempt to try and clean her a bit more regularly. But yeah, as I say, please watch, folks, the grease inside the axles. It is a pain in the what's-it to get to the axles, and the gearbox too. You know, it does need attention, and I need to keep on top of that. I didn't expect the grease to kind of disappear so quickly. So I did use just kind of marine grease. It's not that sticky. So this time I've got some different grease, some like red and tacky grease, extra water resistant. Whether that will make a difference or not, I don't know. But I've put a lot more in the axles and a lot more in the gearbox than I did. So I've, you know, from watching other videos, I've really kind of gone to town with it and stuffed loads of grease in there. So hopefully it should be better. The rig was performing fine, squeaking a little bit, but you know, that's about it. But yeah, so please be mindful about what can happen, and just keep an eye on the gears. And I'll be interested to see if she does sound any quieter, because with these things, over time, if they get loud, you don't necessarily notice, because it's a gradual process. So yeah, let's see what she's like for the next run out. But hope you're all okay and staying safe. You know, thanks for watching this video, and hope this proves useful to some of you. Please ask me any questions, comments, if you need them. If you have any issues, I'll try and do my best to answer them. Have a fantastic Christmas, everybody. Stay safe. Please like and subscribe, and catch you soon. Bye for now.